Good morning. We're going to use what we learned yesterday with the trig ratios to find side lengths for these right triangles that we're working with. So here's what you need to remember. You need to remember that sine is the opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay, so these problems are going to be giving us an angle, and we're going to use the trig functions, the trig ratios, to find the missing side length labeled by x. So here's how you set it up. Remember yesterday we were looking and it would say sine angle A equals, say a number, 5 over 10, 5 over 2. Okay? That's what our problem is going to look like here. It's that we're going to have an actual angle in angle A, and one of these side lengths is going to be the x. And we're going to have to find what x is by solving an equation. Okay, so we're going to set it up. Okay, now I said sine, and I said sine because I knew that we were going to have to find sine. But you need to know, if we're looking at this angle, you need to know that this is the opposite over the hypotenuse. That's what's given. Okay, so I would know that I use sine there. Okay, it might be cosine, it might be tangent based on what side lengths are given. Okay, so we're doing the sine of 28, and that equals the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 19. Now, you should know how to solve this equation, even though you've never seen an equation done like this before. To find x, we got to get rid of this 19. Since x is being divided by 19, we multiply by 19 on both sides to get the x by itself. So that's going to cancel out 19, and we're going to be left with x equals 19 times the sine of 28. Now, in your calculators, hopefully you have one at home, you can just hit the sine button. It's going to open a parentheses, and you're going to put 28 in that parentheses, and then you're going to multiply by 19. Now you need to end the parentheses before you press multiply, but it should give you something like 8.919959693. Okay, we're going to round that to the nearest tenth because that's what our instructions say. So we're going to round that to 8.9. So x equals 8.9. So what that tells us is this side is 8.9. Okay, so let's look at number 5. See what side lengths it gives us. Okay, we know it's not giving us the hypotenuse. That's supposed to be an x, like marked out, not just a variable x. It's not giving us the hypotenuse because the hypotenuse is across from the right angle. So that means it's giving us the opposite and the adjacent. If it gives us the opposite and adjacent, that means we are finding the tangent function. So we're going to take our angle, the tangent of 41, and tangent is opposite, so the opposite is x over adjacent, which is 32. Okay, so this follows the same steps. We're trying to get x by itself, so we need to multiply by 32. When you do that, it cancels out 32, and you're left with 32 times the tangent of 41. So I'm going to put 32 times, hit the tangent button, and then my parentheses, I'm going to put 41 and close my parentheses and hit equals. And it should give you 27.817, yada, yada, yada. So we're going to round that. So x equals 27.8. So what that tells us is this x, that side length, is 27.8. Okay, let's look at number 6. Number 6, we're looking at this angle. It does not give us the opposite. Okay, it's giving us the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Well, the only trig function that has adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So we're finding the cosine of 21. And remember, cosine is adjacent, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 26. So this lends us to the same steps that we just followed. Trying to get x by itself, so we need to multiply both sides by 26. That cancels that out and leaves us with x equals 26 times the cosine of 21. This is just a calculator problem. 26 times, hit the cosine button in your parentheses, you're going to put 21, end your parentheses, and hit equals. and we get x equals 24.3. Okay, so hopefully you understand what's happening here. We're going to look at some more. And in a couple of questions, our steps will change just a little bit, so pay attention to that. Okay, this is clearly not giving us the hypotenuse. So if it's not giving us the hypotenuse, that means it's giving us the opposite and the adjacent. That is our tangent function here. Okay, so tangent of our angle, which is 55, equals the opposite. Opposite of that is x over adjacent, which is 8. So same steps. To get x by itself, we multiply by 8 on both sides. So you're left with x equals 8 times tangent 55. So calculator, 8 multiply tangent. In your parentheses, 55, end it, and hit equals, you get 11.4. Okay, now let's look at number 8. Okay, it is giving us the opposite and the hypotenuse. So opposite and hypotenuse is sine. Okay, so we're finding the sine of 33, and we're using the opposite, which is 15, over the hypotenuse, which is x. Now, this one ended up a little differently because we got the x on bottom. You still follow the same step, you're just going to have an extra one. So we're going to get x off the bottom of that fraction. So when we do that, we multiply by x on both sides, and that cancels out, and you're left with 15 equals x times sine 33. Now, if x is not by itself, we can't stop. We can't just put that in our calculator. We have to get x by itself. So since x is being multiplied by sine 33, we can divide by sine 33 to find x. So that's going to cancel that out on the left, and we're now going to do 15 divided by sine 33. And you get 27.5. Okay, so let's look at the next one. If we're looking at 43, it's giving us the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So that is cosine. So we're doing the cosine of 43 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 36 over the hypotenuse, which is x. So if you get x on bottom, that's when you have to do the extra step. So we're going to multiply by x on both sides. That gives us x cosine of 43 equals 36. And then to get x by itself, we divide by the cosine of 43. So that cancels out, and that leaves us with x equals, and then we're going to do 36 divided by the cosine of 43 in your calculator. So that gives you 49.2. Okay, 10 and 11 should work one of the two ways that we've worked them out. So let's look. All right, we're given the angle 72 degrees. We are given the side lengths opposite and adjacent. Opposite and adjacent is our tangent function. So tangent of 72 equals opposite, which is 25, over adjacent, which is x. So this is going to work just like our last two. Multiply by x to get x on the other side. So you got x times tangent 72 equals 25. And then to get x by itself, we want to divide by tangent 72. So that's going to leave us with x equals, do 25 divided by tangent 72, and you get 8.1. Okay, hopefully you can do number 11 by yourself, but we're going to do one more together, just like this. It's giving us 64, and it gives us the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So that's cosine. So cosine of the angle 64 equals the adjacent side, so x, over the hypotenuse, which is 11. All right, so this is the easier one. It's one less step. We need to multiply by 11 to get the x by itself. So x is 11 times cosine 64. So you're going to do 11 times cosine 64, close your parentheses, and you get 4.8. Okay, so that is all for the regular problems. Okay, so let's look at two-word problems. Jake leaned a 12-foot ladder against his house. All right, so let's draw us a little house. All right, and he leaned a ladder that's 12 feet against it. if the angle formed by the ladder and the ground, okay, so here's the ground, and the angle formed by the ladder and the ground is 68 degrees, how far from the base of the house did he place the ladder? So we're looking for x here. Okay, so based on that angle, this angle here at the ground, we are given the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Okay, so adjacent over hypotenuse. So this is no different than what we were just doing. You just had some more extra words. So that means cosine is the function that we're using. So we're doing cosine of the angle, which is 68, equals the adjacent side, which is x, over the hypotenuse. And this gave us one of those easier problems. So we're going to multiply by 12 and be done. So x equals 12 times the cosine of 68. So 12 times the cosine of 68 is 4.5. Okay, so what that means is this length on the ground is 4.5 feet. So the ladder has to be 4.5 feet away from the house for it to stand up. All right, a ramp is used to load suitcases on an airplane. I'm not going to draw an airplane for you, but here's our ramp. I'm just going to make a triangle. This makes a right angle. If the cargo door is 7 feet from the ground, so 7 feet from the ground, so that means it's 7 feet tall, and the angle formed by the end of the ramp and the ground, so this angle here is 25 degrees. How long is the ramp? Now this is the ramp, so that's x. So we're looking for our hypotenuse. So it gives us opposite and hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse is sine. So we are finding the sine of 25 and using the opposite, which is 7, over the hypotenuse, which is x. All right, so this is one where you got to do the extra step. So we multiply by x, and you get x times the sine of 25 equals 7. And then to get x by itself, you divide by sine 25. So x equals 7 divided by sine 25, which is 16.6. So that's how long the ramp is. Okay? All right, so you are going to do the work that's listed below. And make sure you submit a picture of this and a picture of that work. Hope you have a great day.